The cycle of matter in a hippopotamus amphibius's life. So starting with number 1 are producers. So the grasses that grow in these African wetlands are small shoots, grass, typically the short grass, roots, reeds. These are all plants that hippos consume throughout the day. These plants hold the organic matter that will be transferred to the hippo once consumed. These plants contain oxygen, water, and other essential organic matters for the hippos to eat. Our primary consumer is our hippo. They typically live in aquatic biomes such as lakes and swamps. They prefer temperate and tropical freshwater environments. They are primarily herbivores, but will also eat carrion, which is decaying flesh of animals. The reason for this may just be illness or a major lack of nutrients. They eat all the grass and plants in the aquatic environment and then obtain the organic matter. They will gain the carbon dioxide, water, and other nutrients from these plants. Other primary consumers may include antelopes, gazelles, and zebras. All these animals eat the grasses and are hunted by the same secondary consumers. So for our secondary consumers, it's going to mostly be the crocodiles, lions, and hyenas that our hippos have to fear. The hyenas will mostly feed on an already deceased hippo. However, there have been records of tribes of hyenas hunting a hippo alive. They could also be considered a tertiary consumer. Lions will hunt down, attack, and kill adult and baby hippos, thus absorbing their organic matter and energy. Crocodiles are known to attack baby hippos when they are left alone without their parents. And then all these secondary consumers obtain the primary consumer's energy. For our tertiary consumers, it's going to mostly be our vultures. They will eat all the secondary consumers after they die, making them the tertiary consumers. When a hippo either gets killed or dies, aside from the secondary consumers, the vultures will also feed on their carcass. If a hippo is dying slowly, a vulture may fly in circles above it until it's able to feed on its carcass. And then moving on to our decomposers. Our two main decomposers are going to be termites, which is just the main decomposer for the plants in the area, and then our fungi. So these decomposers will break down the organic matter from the dead animals or the animal's poop, allowing it to help the future grasses and plants grow. The hippos will therefore eat the new growing grasses or roots, and then this organic cycle is completed, and then it's going to continue on. So you can see the arrows moving to the grasses that grow, and then the hippos are going to eat it. And then this is just my source page.
Okay, so this is the life cycle of little brown bats. Okay, as you can see the model, we have our producers, which are our ants, grass, fungi. Then you can see our primary, which is our caterpillars, our mites, our midges, and then you also see the secondary, which is the lacewing, the midges, and the beetles. You also see our tertiary, which is the little brown bats. And then we also have I added parasitum because there is a white nose syndrome that appears in bats. So it's a fungus that grows on them when they're hibernating, and it takes their fat reserves and it has like dehydration. And then we also have our actual decomposition fungi. So let's go. So our producers would be our ants, our grass, our fungi, our plants, our minerals, water, carbon, oxygen, and light. And this is just the producers that the primary consumers eat. And then the primary consumers are our caterpillars, our mites, our nectar, plant sap, carrion, and plants. And the primary consumers are the ones that eat the producers. Then you also have our secondary, which is the lacewings, the midges, and the beetles. And this eats the primary, but it also is eaten by the tertiary, which is our next one. Our tertiary will be our little brown bats, for our small bats with longer and glossier fur and very abundant in North America. They live in very desert, foresty areas, and they also are very, very abundant. And then we also have our decomposers, which are our Hippolyum ephemeral, known as gold fungus, and it springs out of the decomposing animal remains. And we also have our seraphotic fungi, which breaks down and recycles dead plant and animal material. So as you can go back to the model, we will see how this all relates, and you see where they get their energy from and where they also give their energy off of. And then as you can see how this takes away the fungus and the decomposition, but how all this relates to going into bats. And that's my presentation.
We are looking at how carbon moves through the ecosystem that the red kangaroo lives in. So the red kangaroo lives in the savanna biome. The Campbell textbook defines the savanna biome as a climate with seasonal rainfall averaging 30 to 50 centimeters per year, with a dry season that can last up to 9 months per year. So we're going to be looking at how carbon moves through this ecosystem. It starts with the producers taking in the carbon from the environment in the form of CO2 and making it into sugars that they are able to use for energy and other bioprocesses that they need to complete throughout their life. Then they release oxygen into the atmosphere as a byproduct, which is what animals and other organisms are able to use for respiration. So then we have our primary consumers who eat those producers, which are red kangaroo and European rabbit. And they are able to use the sugars that the producers had produced, which contain the carbon needed for them to complete different life cycle events. And this process continues through the secondary consumers and the tertiary into the decomposers. So we're going to take a closer look at that here. So we have our producers, which are the cane grass or love grass and the pappus grass. So these organisms are the ones that are able to take the carbon in from the environment and make it into sugars, which are then usable for other organisms. And our primary consumers, which are the red kangaroo and the European rabbit, then eat these these producers. So they are primary because they're the first ones to eat the producers, and they're able to use the sugars that the producers had made in order to get their carbon source. So if these organisms were to die, the carbon would then move on to the decomposer, who would break down the animal and allow for the carbon to be released back into the environment. And the same goes for all of these consumers. If they were to die, the decomposer would come in and help break down the organism. So our secondary consumers are the dingo, the wedge-tailed eagles, and the saltwater crocodile, which you will see the saltwater crocodile in tertiary as well because he eats both primary and secondary consumers. And these organisms will go through and eat the primary consumers, which are the red kangaroo and the European rabbit, and they will take the carbon from the sugars in those animals, and they will be able to use it for their bioprocesses, and then they will then carry that carbon until our tertiary consumer, who in this example is the saltwater crocodile, then goes and eats them. And he will be able to take all that carbon from them and use it for his bioprocesses. And then when he passes away, or any other organism for that matter, the decomposer comes in, which in this example is the green bottleflies. And they will help break down the organism and release that carbon into the atmosphere, which then can start back by the producers being able to take it in and create sugars with it. Here is the works cited page. So now we're going to discuss the similarities and differences between the carbon cycles of the little brown bat, the hippo, and the red kangaroo. So first of all, the red kangaroo and hippos both eat grasses, which means that they are primary consumers. This differs from the brown bat, but these two animals, the hippo and red kangaroo, are able to take in the producers' sugars, which in this case are the grasses, and convert them into carbon for their life cycles.
So some other similarities between the red kangaroo, hippo, and the little brown bat is that they all reside in hot environments. They are all mammals, and also a difference is that a brown bat is a tertiary consumer, which the red kangaroo and the hippo, as said before, are primary consumers.
And then a final few similarities and differences. For similarities, the red kangaroo and hippo, they both have a secondary consumer of crocodiles, and then both the red kangaroo and brown bat are terrestrial. And then for a difference, the brown bat lives in a forest area while the red kangaroo lives in the savanna and the hippo lives in like a wetland environment.
And that was the carbon cycles of the little brown bat, hippo, and red kangaroo.